Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Permanent values, part 10. No to riba. And riba is normally used, is interpreted as usury interest. But we will see that the meanings are far wider than just usury or interest. And it is a permanent value. And no to riba means that it has no place under the system of deen. These are the references. And in this, the Quranic system of sustenance provides a very detailed background to the whole concept of the economic system, which is put forward by the Quran. And this is our contact in case there is any question or query regarding this presentation or any of our previous presentations. The first slide is few points to set the scene for this permanent value. We have seen that the Quran emphasizes the acceptance of Iman in order to bring about a change in our psyche, which then becomes enabled to understand its value system, leading towards deen and its understanding. The Quran is a guide, and when we follow it after making a deliberate decision to use it, we reach that destination which is defined by Allah for Adam. And if you remember in this verse, Quran says, if mankind follows the revelation coming from Allah, then in their system, they will have no fear and no huzn, no grief. So that is the preliminary stage and sign which will tell us that the system based on the relative values created by man-made systems, there is always fear and grief. While in this system, there will be no fear and grief, and we have gone through some of these aspects previously. This means that we do not follow it mechanically, but with the acceptance of our heart and mind, and with firm conviction that it will take us to our destination. And we know that huzn relates to human psyche and fear relates to the external fear, and both are human, the states, various states of human psyche. So it cannot be followed mechanically, but we have to understand the whole logic and rationale behind it. This means that when Allah commands through the Quran, this is not to be accepted mechanically. For example, that we have to do it. Instead, it should be understood like a need in relation to our self-development, just like we need food and water to keep our body going. So it is not compulsory, it is more of acceptance through our heart and mind that this is for my own good. For example, when we carry out physical exercise, we know it is good for our body. We don't say that it is compulsory. It is essential to live a healthy life. Similarly, if we follow the Quran in order to live a healthy life at self level as well as physical level, we need the value system of the Quran. Our proclamation should be, we heard it and we will obey it. Samena wa atana. When a moment studies the Quran, he sees it as a means to an end, i.e. to reach the destination called the system of deen as far as this worldly life is concerned. So it is with a very clear destination in mind, a very clear objective in mind, that this system is the only one which will make us free from fear and huzn created by man-made systems. And then it also takes us beyond our physical death, that is the fear of death disappears, and we know that there is another life which is in continuation with this life at our self's level. He makes a choice which is not available under the man-made systems. And we have gone through this verse previously as well. La ikraha fid deen qad tabayyana ar-rushdu min al-ghayy faman yakfur bit-taghut wa yu'min billah. There is no compulsion in the matter of deen. That is, deen is the name of acceptance through the connivance of our own heart and mind. The path of righteousness is made distinctly clear from the wrong one. The one who does not reject the systems of Taghut has nothing to do with the system of deen. And Taghut means all those systems which are against the laws of Allah, which do not follow the laws of Allah. That is, all the man-made systems will fall under the Taghut, because The destination within these systems is based on this assumption that the life ends with death, and human beings think that once the brain is dead, we are dead. So that point we should keep in mind as we go through this presentation. The purpose of Deen, some basic points. By completing the Quran, it is declared that, and it is declared by Allah, the system of Deen is Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ne'mati wa razitu lakumul Islam deenan. This day have I completed your deen for you, completed my favor upon you, and this is being declared by Allah to us. Allah is letting us know that with the Quran, Deen has been completed in every respect. That means if we do not think that the Quran gives that Deen which Allah has prescribed for us with a view to provide us guidance, then we haven't really understood the Quran. Because if we try to go outside it, then we will be committing shirk, and the recipe or the formula contained within the Quran will become null and void. And have chosen for you Islam as your deen. I've highlighted Islam over here means that whatever human beings are meant to become as a creation of Allah, Quran helps us to become that. That is, we get an integrated self at the end of once the system of Deen is established and we follow it and carry out the self-development within the permanent values of the Quran. Islam is a system of life, and for any system, it is an intrinsic necessity that it has authority and control belonging to someone, and that people obey that possessor of authority. For the correct system, it is necessary that in this, first, no man should have control and authority over another man in any way, physically or psychologically. And this is important. Under the man-made system, the man-made system tries to control the psyche of human beings under its subjugation. Whereas Quran says that since every human child possesses choice and intent, hence they should follow the laws of Allah and the values of the Quran, and then they will become independent, and then they will get the true freedom to make choices in this life. Control and authority is that of the law. So that means the human beings disappear from that, because then Book of Allah becomes the law. This law is immutable, and this law must remain the same for the first man on the planet Earth and the last man leaving the planet Earth, i.e., it does not keep changing due to expediency, convenience, or self-interest. And we can feel that how much certainty comes from the Quranic system of Deen. Those residing within its boundaries obey this law willingly with the full acquiescence of their hearts. It should have so much power that it can get its decisions accepted, and that is important. And we have seen that how we acquire power by following the Quran. By following it, prosperous and successful outcomes should appear in front, and the consequences of disobedience to it should also be clear. So it has to be evidence-based. Next slide is the purpose of Deen, some more basics. Deen-e-Islam fulfills all these conditions. In it, the controlling authority is with the law of Allah, which is in the Quran, and whose constructive outcomes can appear in a tangible form in front of everyone. If control and authority does not remain with Deen, i.e., it becomes deprived of the power of implementation, then it becomes a madhab, a religion, which is the collection of a few beliefs and ritualistic movements and practices which do not materialize into concrete results. And that is the state of the Muslim world at this point in time, that they are following religion as a private matter. And as a result, nothing changes in the outer world. In fact, there is a very derogatory effect of doing this, because whatever we believe, it affects our psyche. And if our psyche becomes negative and we lose interest in the practical world, then we become subjugated to someone who are stronger than this, who do not who follow a secular mind. And that is important to understand, that the nations under the influence of madhab simply cannot rise even materially. In fact, by becoming an end in themselves, these religious beliefs and practices lead to cognitive retardation and impairment. And this requires our very profound reflection, that we should come to terms with this, that the way our psyche is, that decides what kind of a world we want. And Quran has pointed to this, that Allah does not change the state of a nation until they change what is within their own psyche. For this deen, the need for an independent state is an absolute necessity. In the external world, the deen of Allah is functioning automatically, because the things of the universe are constrained to obey the law of Allah. In the human world, this system will be implemented at the hands of human beings, because man is provided with the choice, either obey the law of Allah or to go against it. And these are the efforts which we are making on the platform of Tolu Islam. By living life according to deen, this world will become Jannat in every respect, and the life of the hereafter will also be Jannat. By going against it, this world will become Jahannam, and this is the world of 2025, and the life of the hereafter will also be Jahannam. Because this life is connected with the next life at a non-physical level. That is, our body remains behind, our self goes forward, and this self will get some new way of interpreting its consciousness. So if we keep that in mind and logically look at it, then we can easily see what the Quran is trying to tell us. Next slide is some weaknesses of the human psyche. So in relation to no to riba, we should keep that Quran has pointed to certain weaknesses of human psyche at a fundamental level. It is the way human beings are born and are not guided by the Quran. So unguided human thinking displays these weaknesses. Human beings, unlike animals, do not possess any nature, that is fitrat. The following are some of the traits listed by the Quran of an unbridled human intellect. There is more to it, and as we go through the Quran, these traits, these weaknesses will come before us. But over here, I have just as an example quoted some. First is, Quran says, for man was created weak. And we see that weaknesses in every way. This includes physical as well as the psychological aspects. Next is, man is a creature of haste, that man wants to get quick results. Man tries to do things very quickly because he is interested to see the outcomes of his efforts very quickly. For man is given to hasty deeds, exactly the interpretation of the above verse. Next is, for man is ever miserly. That is, man does not want to spend on others, does not wish to extend help to others, particularly through wealth. And that is why man accumulates money. And that is why nowhere in the Quran accumulation of wealth is permitted. It has asked us that we should keep it open for the good of everyone. Truly, man was created very impatient, and impatience is related to getting quick results, as well as whatever man does, he becomes impatient if he does not find the desired results very quickly. And that impatience we have to overcome as students of the Quran. Next is, but man is in most things contentious, and we can see that there are inbuilt dissonances within man where there are differences. And man is asked, Allah has asked us that we should remove those differences. That is why Quran says that you should not divide yourself into sects. Because if you're divided into sects, then essentially you haven't understood the Quran. And that is an important point. And because of this inner dissonances, there are conflicts in the world. He was indeed unjust and foolish. And this is another aspect that the Quran, that human beings resort to injustice in the world. And because they are short-sighted and do not look at the long-term effects of their deeds, as a result, they end up making mistakes. And not only they end up making mistakes, they keep repeating those mistakes. uses power to its extremity, that is without hikmat, because Quran provides us wisdom to utilize power. And Quran says, وَإِذَا بَطَشْتُمْ بَطَشْتُمْ جَبَّارِينَ, and when you exert your power, you do it like men of absolute power, with no fear of accountability. And we can see this being displayed, for example, in Palestine and in other lands like Ukraine, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Africa, and in virtually in every country where weak are suppressed and there is no mercy, there is no affection for them as equal human beings. Human beings establish a system in which they retain more than their needs and thus create imbalances. And that is why Quran says, وَيَسَأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قُلِ الْعَفْوَ. They ask you what to keep openly available for others, say what is beyond your need. And recognizing this, the Quran guides us that ultimate state of the Dini system will be in which people will make everything available for the good of others, and through that mutual harmony, that system will be free from all kinds of fear and huzn. Then when men are in a position of power, what they do is Fakala ana rabbukumul ala. Then the Pharaoh said, I am your Rabb most high. And we can see today that the nations who have somehow acquired a lot of power, they are trying to control the economy of the world. And this is something unguided mind is going to do. So if somebody else replaces this nation, they will also do the same. And that is something which we should keep in our focus. Few more points of interest. The Quran's addressees are mu'mineen, i.e. who are seeking guidance and then immerse their attention in its folds to understand the finer details of the system of deen. And Quran says, La yamassuhu ilal mutahharun. The meaning is that only those can draw benefit from it who have decided by choice to become righteous and purified. And this is an important point, that Quran should be understood the way Quran wants us to understand it. It is not to bring our own desires that this is how I wish to understand it. Not at all. Quran says, understand it the way Quran itself wants us to understand it. And that is a very important point. And for that, we should approach the Quran totally free from all preconceived ideas, thoughts, beliefs, etc. We have seen so far that all the permanent values need our focus and full attention to understand them, and to then be able to conceive the system of deen. Part of this intense learning process is to remain firm and steadfast on this path altogether, and to not be distracted from the intended destination. The issue to come to grips with is that we hear a great deal about the issue of dispensing with interest or riba in the man-made economic systems and do not get anywhere, and problems keep multiplying. The fact is that those who make such attempts simply do not have that psyche which is predicated on Iman and solid deeds. Hence, they cannot achieve this. The system of deen of the Quran is diametrically opposite to all of the man-made systems. So we can't do sticky plaster thing within the man-made systems and make few changes here and there and think that we have got the system of deen, or we are trying to please Allah and Allah is well pleased with that system. Because such systems simply cannot give those benefits which the Quran lists within its folds regarding the system of deen, and we know it. And the basic signs are that there will be no fear and huzn in this system. And we know there is a lot more to it. Hence, what we need is to aim for the establishment of the system of deen by coming to the pure Quran, and for this we can seek the help of Tolu Islam. If we do not do this, then this dream of the Quranic system of sustenance will continue to remain a total illusion. Now let us go to Riba and define it, meaning of the root. To have more, to increase, to grow, and increase in the wealth of people, growth and spread of vegetation. Arba means more abundance. more increase in wealth and treasures. A thing which rises and comes on the top, that debris or foam which comes to the surface, a very hard grip which is enhanced. And this is something very important because once this system is established, it has a very firm hold on human systems. And that mentality changes. And that is where we should concentrate in today's presentation, that how the Quran wants us to change our psyche in order to understand riba. Such a grip which overwhelms man and subjugates him, increased quantity and excess in wealth and possessions. So that means people who are supporting and implementing this system and running it, what kind of a psyche they have acquired. And Quran helps us to understand that psyche, because if we change our psyche, which is different from the psyche of these people, then we can come to this conclusion that two psyches are totally different from each other. Al-riba, that interest which is received on the loan, taking more on the original capital. It is noted in Surah Al-Imran, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la taqulur riba adafan mudafatan. The common translation of this verse is, O Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, devour not riba doubled and multiplied. The verse ends stating, Wattakullaha la'allakum tuflihun. Become muttaqi as stated by Allah, and we know muttaqi is the one who is aware of the risks of following life and then tries to avoid those risks, those dangers, those harms, so that you achieve falah. And falah we cannot achieve unless we avoid the risks of life. And it includes prosperity, success. In relation to this verse, it is commonly stated that taking compound interest is haram, but just taking simple interest is not haram. This is fundamentally wrong, as will become clear through subsequent discussion. Next slide is a few more reflections on no to riba. The first part of the verse is misinterpreted. Imam Raghib has said that in this verse, the word muzafatan is actually derived from the root zafun, meaning to reduce, and not zefun, which means to accumulate. Hence, the meaning of the verse is that the riba which you are thinking is to increase your wealth is not increasing it, rather is diminishing it, zafun, in relation to this root. Due to riba, the wealth of society decreases and the abilities and energies of the riba consumers happen to go down. Due to this, the national economy decreases significantly. It does not increase. This is such a reality in which there is no need for any reasoning and evidence. Due to riba, the earning potentials of people become paralyzed and the national wealth is decreased. And one of the things which we should keep in mind is that under the man-made system, we are only exposed to what is happening in the man-made system. Whereas once we have system of deen and we conceive it well, then we can figure it out what the Quran is telling us. Because under the man-made system, despite it appears as a wealth is increasing, but this wealth is increased due to mechanical manipulations and through the exploitation by those who are in position of power. And then human self's ability and the physical abilities, both are not used optimally because there is not a lot of willingness on the part of the majority to contribute towards the good of the society. They do it mechanically. In the economic system which the Quran has proposed, there is no question of interest or usury in it. When accumulation of wealth is forbidden, then the question of riba does not even arise. In it, surplus money does not stay with anyone. It becomes distributed throughout the whole of society. Because Quran calls this life as mata'ul hayat dunya, that it is a journey. And once you are on a journey, you do not accumulate things. You only carry those things which are good enough to pass this life conveniently and happily. In this connection, for example, in this verse, Ma fa'allahu ala rasulihi min ahlil qura falillahi wa lirrasuli وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ كِي لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ. What Allah has bestowed on His Rasool from the people belongs to His Rasool. That is to the messenger or to the central authority which is running the affairs of the state. To kindred, orphans, needy and the wayfarer. So these are also the duties of that state to fulfill, so that there are no yatim and miskin in the society. And obviously this is for the initial stages of the establishment of the system of deen, so that it may not make a circulation between the wealthy among you. See how clearly Quran says that the wealth must not accumulate into few hands, it must keep flowing. And that means Quran is telling us that if it accumulates in few hands, then there will be yatim and miskin, needy and wayfarers will be deprived of their rights. So that is why it belongs to His Rasool. And Quran says that hand it over to the center of the system, which is managed by those who are Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen and have become Mu'mineen willingly to follow the Quran. It states towards the end, Wattaqullah, follow Allah's law by becoming muttaqi. So wherever these words come, Wattaqullah, it means that we have to create a system which is based on the values of the Quran. And this has to proceed from individual to a collective system. That is, individuals come together and form Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen by uniting their hearts. Now, next slide is expanding this further. According to the Quran, the comprehensive and conclusive definition is contained within these 4 words. وَإِن تُبْتُمْ فَلَاكُمْ رَؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. And we can look at this verse 279. If you resort to Tawbah, then there is your original wealth. That means before the forbiddance of Riba was introduced in the society, these verses were revealed, there was some form of Riba going on in that society. Obviously, it was a capitalist system in which rich controlled the economic side of the society. Note, up to this point, Deen is in a transient state. So that is something we should keep in mind, that when Quran is addressing Jamaat al-Mu'mineen, that means the system of Deen is now taking shape. In the first part of verse, فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And Quran says, if you do not desist from this practice of riba, which was prevalent up to that point, and now since the system of deen has been established, then it will be taken as a rebellion against Allah and His Rasool. So that is, Allah and Rasool means the Islamic system. So for us is that we have to also follow this procedure, that from man-made system to the system of deen, there will be intermediate stage or intermediate phase. After this is stated, وَإِن تُبْتُمْ فَلَاكُمْ رَؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. Then the verse concludes, لَا تُظْلِمُونَ وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ. Due to this, neither you will do injustice to anyone, nor will injustice be done to you. So this is also part of the system, that people who are involved in this business of riba, they should get their original sums back. They should get their original wealth back. Ultimately, of course, the Quran says that whatever is beyond your need, hand it over to the system, because the system will take care of all your needs. From this, it becomes clear that if the original money is taken back by the lender, then there is no injustice to the borrower. If any amount is taken more than the original by the lender, then it will be injustice on the borrower. So it is very interesting. Over here, Quran is telling us a factual position, that if someone has some wealth and somebody else needs it and he can give a loan to them, then that is all, they can take it back. And of course, that means in this system, there is no inflation, there is no depreciation of that wealth. And we will come to that slightly later. This is called riba, i.e. taking any amount greater than the original. With this definition of the Quran, there remains neither an issue, nor any complication, nor any confusion. Next slide is the question of getting a return for what? And this is something which also irritates human mind, particularly under the man-made system, that if I have earned something and I give it to someone and then take it back after some time because the other person doesn't need it, what benefit did I draw? And this is something to which the Quran draws our attention, that it is yourself which enhances itself by helping others. And if we do not have access to ourself, we do not understand what our self is, then obviously we have an issue over here of coming to terms with the concept of self explained in the Quran. It is generally thought that this increase in the original sum is related to the matter of loan. This is not correct. This is a comprehensive principle, and the whole structure of the Quranic system, of the Quranic economic system, is raised on it. The fundamental question is whether the return is for the labor or that of the capital. The Quranic verdict is, لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Man is only deserving of the recompense for his work. And that is important to understand, that the Quran emphasizes that we have to use our physical body and our intellect to get the things done and be creative and follow the Quran. Capital is not such thing for which a return can be demanded. Hence, in the matter of labor, work, any return on the capital without any work, whatever shape it may have, is riba, and according to the Quran, this is haram, and is deserving of the proclamation of war against such a system from the direction of Allah and Rasool, that is the Islamic system of deen. So important thing for us to understand is that capital itself cannot produce more wealth. It is human beings who utilize capital in order to exploit the work of others. The Quran over here says that you should do amal. And we have seen under the permanent value of amal that it is through our deeds that we develop ourselves. By earning on capital, which is the product outcome of the wrong system, man-made system, we are not doing any amal. We are actually deceiving others, and we are cheating, and we are taking away the hard work of others. And if we are part of such a system where we are exploiting others and not even know about it, then obviously we have a problem, and our self is not going to develop, because the self has to understand these things in the first place in order to counter this through the system of deen. With this definition put forward by the Quran, all prevalent forms of earnings existing under the man-made systems in which human work is not involved are illegitimate. And we can see that if this is correct, and we know that this is correct because Allah has asked us to establish this system, that means the whole man-made system is a big criminal enterprise, which is counter to the laws of Allah, i.e. the permanent values of the Quran. This means that without the system of deen, talking about getting rid of riba is totally farcical and futile. And that means such people who try to create this kind of an impression as if they can free man-made economy from riba are either telling lie or are totally ignorant about the teaching of the Quran. Another important aspect is that for the self-development, we need to work. That is, we need amal, leading to kasab. And we know Quran says, لِتُجْزَ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ, that whatever human beings do, they are accountable for that, which means that the results which we expect from our deeds by following the Quran, and if we are not following the Quran the way Quran asks us to follow it, then we will not get those benefits. In earnings through so-called capital investment, where is amal? And if amal and earnings from the capital are combined, then it is a serious contamination, and that becomes shirk. Focus needs to be on self-development. The Quranic system is this, that man should earn by working as much as possible. This is the demand of the Iman based on Allah's concept plus the hereafter, i.e. produce the maximum, after keeping what is according to his need, to make the rest of it available for the remainder of mankind. From this, it becomes clear that riba is the opposite of this system. In those systems based on riba, instead of keeping his surplus capital available for the nourishment and development of others, man makes it the means for earning from the outcome of the work of others. This is why the Quran has declared it to be a proclamation of war against the Islamic system. And from here, we can see the seriousness of this. And if the first stage is that under the man-made system, we should understand it fully in all respects, and then be able to look through the man-made system that how exploitive this system is and how criminal it is, and why it creates yatim and miskeen in the world. It is obvious that this kind of system cannot emerge until the human psyche comes to grips willingly with the ills of the man-made systems. And that is why Quran says, Yakfur bit taghut. Those who wish to adopt this path of life have to come to terms with the clear concept of this whole philosophy of life within the permanent values of the Quran. If we look at the verses prior to this 279 of Surah Al-Baqarah, there are verses on making wealth and possessions available for others. For example, these verses 254 and from 261 to 74. Why is Allah emphasizing so much on helping others and on striving on His path willingly through possessions and even to the laying down of one's life? The answer to this question holds the key to understanding the issue of riba. Looking at progressive implementation. As the first step, give up whatever riba is due from the borrower. If he is short an income, then give him respite to return the loan, and if he is unable to do so, then forgive the loan. And Quran says, وَإِنْ كَانَ ذُو أُسْرَةٍ فَنَاظِرَاتٌ إِلَى مَيْسَرَةٍ وَأَنْ تُصَدَّقُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. If the debtor is in a difficulty, grant him time till it is easy for him to repay. But if you remit it by way of doing good, that is best for you, that is khair, if you have knowledge. And this is the beauty of this verse, that it wants us to change our psyche, change our previous psyche from trying to get more from our capital from others. And now the Quran is asking us that even if you have given a loan to somebody, then give him time to be able to pay it back, unless you need it. And of course, then you have to make it clear. But otherwise, leave it till the time the person who has taken the loan can conveniently pay it back by working hard and earning his own living. And Quran says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu taqullaha wazaru ma baqiya minar riba in kuntum mu'minin. And then another verse 278, it says, O Jamaat Mu'mineen, be muttaqeen, that is through Iman, and give up what remains of your demand for riba if you are indeed mu'mineen. So one aspect of becoming muttaqi is that whatever you have given to others, and if you can afford to write it off, because that will be a step forward in self-development and in understanding the system of deen. In fact, that is the way to get help of Allah, because whole issue of becoming mu'mineen is to acquire taqwa. The root cause of riba is due to an inordinate love and attraction for wealth. This turns the human psyche like the ones who are as if they are made mad by shaitan and are severely anxious and discontented. And we know shaitan means that people follow their unbridled desires without the guidance of the Quran, and as a result, they gradually lose all sense of proportion and become very exploitive. Alladhina yakuluna riba la yakumuna illa kama yakumullazi yatakhabbatuhu shaitanu min al-masse. I have highlighted it. Zalika bi annahum qalu innamal baiyu mithlu riba wa halallahu al-baiya wa harrama riba. فَمَنْ جَاءَهُ مَوْعِظَةٌ مِّن رَبِّهِ فَأَنْتَهَى فَلَهُ مَا سَلَفَ وَأَمْرُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَمَنْ عَادَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Those who devour riba will not stand except as stands one whom shaitan by his touch has driven to madness. So the Quran says that this inordinate love for money makes human go mad, and they lose all sense of proportion and all humanity. That is because they say trade that is Baiey is like Riba. And we will come to this difference between Baiey and Riba later. But Allah has permitted trade and forbidden Riba. Those who, after receiving direction from their Rabb, desist shall be pardoned for the past. Their case is for Allah. But those who repeat it are companions of the fire. They will dwell therein for eternity. So Quran over here is putting forward a detailed explanation of difference between Baiey and Riba, and by following Riba, what kind of consequences emerge in the human society. Next verse is long-term effects. The increase in national wealth is through all those contributions and donations, which Quran calls sadaqat, which we give towards welfare projects. The national economy is destroyed through riba, because Quran says, Yamhaqullahu riba wa yurbis sadaqate wallahu la yuhibbu kulla kafarin athim. Remember, riba, about which man thinks that wealth apparently increases, in reality destroys itself and also the nation. And we can see the effects of it all around the world, that how the nations keep becoming poorer. Even those nations which are very powerful, their poor classes keep multiplying at the lower end. Contrary to this, whatever is bestowed for the nourishment of others and about which it seems as if there is a decrease in wealth, it multiplies itself and becomes the means for the nourishment and development of the nation. This mentality becomes commonplace to keep the means of sustenance concealed as far as possible, so that others become deprived of it and are forced to take loans, and the one doling out the loans can enjoy reaping the earnings of others' work. And we can see that in the world. For example, in 2008, there was this collapse of some part of the capitalist system, where houses were vacated and taken possession of by the banks. Those houses were lying vacant, but human beings, since they could not pay the mortgage, they were forced to evict. And this is where we can see the relative values of money as compared to less importance of human beings. That houses are lying vacant, but human beings cannot go and occupy them. That means human beings are degraded from their intrinsic value. And these things are important to note as students of the Quran, that we should understand them and be able to look through the vulnerabilities and weaknesses of the man-made systems. Due to this, human potentials to work, that is amal, become paralyzed, and he becomes disabled from advancing forward in life. Consequently, the nation practicing the capitalist system is bound to become destroyed. Over here, we should look at it that what Quran is saying is that body is given to you to work, not to sit idly and exploit the work of others. So what happens is those who try to live on this interest-based economy and accumulate, they are actually committing double crime. First is that they are not making use of their own body to earn their own living. And secondly, they are exploiting others. And the third dimension is that collectively that system becomes more vulnerable with the passage of time, because evil keeps multiplying. And we can see the effects of that across the world. Therefore, the Jamaat-e-Momineen is to pursue Inna allazina amanu wa amilus salihate wa aqamus salata wa atuz zakata lahum ajruhum inda rabbihim wala khawfun alayhim wala hum yahzanun. Those who accept Iman and do salih deeds leading to establishing the system of Salat and execute Zakat, their reward is with their Rabb, and on them there shall be no khawf and no huzn. Now the next slide is further reflections. The Quran points to another psyche in which one may give extra with the intention of getting more in return. This kind of mentality is destructive. And we should watch out for that there is no tendency and proclivity within us as students of the Quran. As per the law of Allah, only that wealth increases which is given for the nourishment of others. And Quran says, Ma ataitum min ribal yarbu fi amwalin nase fala yarbu indallahi. وَمَا أَتَيْتُم مِّن زَكَاةٍ تُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُضْعِفُونَ. Remember, whatever you give to others, thinking that in return you will receive more than what you gave them, you may possibly get more, but according to the law of Allah, it will not add to your wealth. Here we need to view it in the context of the whole of humanity. It is not an increase. Contrary to this, you give so that it helps nourish others. And in this, you do not think of any self-interest. Instead, you do it so that your life becomes congruent with the laws of Allah. That is, we should always keep it in mind that it is to establish the system of deen and to promote those causes which promote and which help us going towards establishing the system of deen on this path called Sirat-e-Mustaqim. These are those people in whose possessions there is a real increase. One cause of the destruction of the Jews was the commerce based on riba. And Quran says, وَأَخْذِهِمُ الرِّبَا وَقَدْ نُهُوا عَنْهُ وَأَكْلِهِمْ أَمْوَالَ النَّاسِ بِالْبَاطِلِ. See, over here it says that you eat up the possessions of others through a system of falsehood, batil, which produces destructive results. وَأَعْتَدْنَا لِلْكَافِرِينَ مِنْهُمْ عَذَابًا أَلِيمًا. And this is that punishment, that azab in which the present world is immersed in every respect. That they took riba, though they were forbidden, and that they devoured man's possessions wrongfully, we are prepared for kafirin, a grievous punishment. So we should not be living under any illusion that these countries which are practicing this riba, that is, they are part of the capitalist system or communist system or socialism or whatever man-made system names it has acquired, they are living within a system which is based on kufr. An overview of the capitalist system, the system of al-riba. Over here what I've done is I pointed to some aspects of this man-made system. As the phrase goes, there is enough for everyone's needs, but not for everyone's greed. The assumption under the man-made systems is that human life ends with death. And this is a extremely batil assumption which leads to all kinds of problems in the man-made world. And human beings, once they assume that they are not accountable, and particularly those in power, and they think they can get away with all their misdemeanors, then they will establish a system which exploits others. And there is no higher purpose of human creation. With this premise, the rich and powerful do not hold themselves accountable and try to formulate laws which can keep them in power for as long as possible, to satiate their unbridled desire to accumulate more and more. Wealth keeps accumulating in the hands of the few at the top, individually as well as collectively. For example, corporations, the military-industrial complex, industrial giants, etc. And we also know about very rich individuals like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and many, many others. This leads to a gross imbalance in the society and classes are created. For example, the labor class, the middle class, and the upper class. Same human beings, now they are divided into 3 different classes and even more different classes based on their level of possessing wealth. And this is over and above sects, castes, nationalities, parties, and divisions at every level. Same human beings, and we should keep in mind that all of these human beings at some point in time are going to die and leave this life. The gap between the rich and the poor keeps widening as the direction of the wealth is towards the top through, for example, tax cuts, inside trading, lobbying, foreign aid, capital investments, intelligence channels, offshore banking, bribes, because human beings want to hide the wealth which they have accumulated. Why they wish to hide it? Because they know they are doing wrong. Because they can see yatim and miskeen and poor all around, but yet they do not find enough motivation to spend it others. And this motivation incentive can only come through the Quran. In order to keep the public quiet, some sort of social welfare system is contrived. In fact, all these efforts to address this system of interest through this Islamic banking, etc., is to overcome that guilt of exploiting others. And we will see that these people, politicians and bankers who take lead in this, have zero interest in the welfare of others. Some sort of social welfare system is contrived, which leads to a very high welfare budget, and gradually a class becomes created which stops working. The concept of free entitlement becomes a norm. Western nations are facing this dilemma. This starts to affect productivity and leads to psychological issues, no higher purpose of life. And we should keep in mind that human mind is given that ability. It has those latent potentials which can work for a higher purpose of life, which includes the life of the hereafter. And if we do not bring out those latent potentials, then those are bound to create imbalances within our psyche. And this is because of the absence of higher purpose of life, and affects the social fiber of the society with an increase in family breakups, increase in crimes, corruption at all levels of society, divisions, depression, fear and huzn, bloodshed, meaningless pursuits focused on material gains, and of course, nothing in the hereafter, as there is no self-development. The next slide is some examples of riba under man-made systems. Taking something extra on a loan is one form of riba. This is a very, very basic and obvious form of riba, but there are a lot of concealed forms within the man-made system, and we should be able to look at them if we understand the Quran. Taking rent for houses also falls under this. In fact, the whole economies in all countries are based on this housing, buying and selling and renting out. The reason is that this whole practice is the creation of surplus wealth and the exploitation of the basic human need for requiring shelter. And we know human beings need shelter. And if we do not provide them shelter, then by some means they will try to acquire that, even if they have to sell their hard work. The Quran invites us to look at the fundamental cause of a problem. And we've gone through this verse 285, where Quran says, first making people destitute and then helping them through charities. And this process of destitution is well planned. It is not that it is happening just as a byproduct of the man-made system. These people who are running and organizing this man-made system is based on this inherent exploitation of others. Hiring out land on a tenant basis so that one individual farms the land while the owner takes a share, for example, 50%. Now the rich countries are controlling the land of the poor countries, which are deliberately kept underdeveloped. And we know it that the powerful nations have more or less total control on the underdeveloped world through the regime changes and by placing those leaders over there and by controlling the capitalist class in those countries. So-called investment in the business of others and taking a share and calling it profit. Banks are doing this as well. And there's another one which is nowadays emerging within the so-called Muslim Ummah. Even within the banking system, a term has now been coined as Islamic banking. This is the biggest joke and insult to the Quran. The Quran calls it evil by other means. مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِهِ إِلَّا أَسْمَاءً سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِن سُلْطَانٍ إِنَّ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ أَمَرَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. And what do these human beings do? The system of exploitation, they built, they establish it, they strengthen it, and then give it a different name. If not him, you obey nothing but names which you have coined, you and your fathers. for which Allah has sent down no authority. And this is very important, that for that, Anzalallahu biha min sultan, that Allah has not sent down any authority, and authority means that the Quran does not authenticate it. The Quran does not justify it. The Quran says this is haram, this is wrong, this is exploitation of the work of other human beings. The command is for none but Allah. He has commanded that you follow Him, and that is the precise deen. But most men have no knowledge. So all these gimmicks of Islamic banking, we should look at these people and question them, that where is the system of deen? There is no Islamic banking. It is impossible. It is a lie. It is batil, and it should be rejected, or at least these people should be confronted with the Quranic concept of economics and riba. The whole direct and indirect taxation system is based on exploiting the work of others. Inflation and quantitative easing also falls under this category of exploitation. And we can see all this is going on right in front of our eyes. And this is what Quran says, the system of Taghut. And this is what Pharaoh had established. And that is why the messenger Musa went to confront him with. Similarly, Rasulullah came and he also confronted Quraysh and people living in that area, that your system is based on exploitation and it must be replaced by the system of deen. Now, next term is the meaning of Baiey, and the root is given here. To sell something or to buy. It is used in both meanings. There is another term, tijarat, used in relation to doing business. The difference between Baiey and tijarat is that the farmer will be generally buying and selling in today's terminology, and tijarat will be called trade or commerce or professional trade. In Baiey, general exchange of things will be covered. Now, referring to verse 275, in which is stated that Allah has declared Baiey as halal and riba as haram. The general concept is that Baiey, i.e. buying and selling, whatever profit is made, it is legitimate. This is not correct. For example, the common practice is to buy at the cheapest rate from the seller and then sell on for the maximum rate to the next buyer. For example, we see this being practiced by big supermarkets. This profit, which is made on the capital investment by these big business conglomerates, falls under riba. We need to dissociate the human effort from the capital, and this is only possible through the system of deen. This mixing of the two is not even recognized by the man-made systems. Under man-made system, everything is fine as long as a rich man makes some profit by exploiting others, whether it is through their hard work or on getting higher return for his capital. The Quran declares this kind of commerce to be the cause for ruin. And Quran says, وَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا اقْتَلُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ وَإِذَا قَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. We have looked at this verse previously as well. Woe to those who deal in fraud. Those who, when they have to receive by measure from man, exact full measure. And we see this being practiced in the word. The one who is powerful can, in fact, not only take full measure, but can take far more than what this agreement is. But when they have to give by measure or wait to men, give less than due. And over here, Quran says, وَزَنُهُمْ, they do not weigh the intrinsic human value properly and exploit those human beings and take advantage of their being weak. The meaning of Baiey, continuing on that, let us illustrate this with another example through a shop owner. A shoemaker, after making a shoe, brings it to the shop. It is the maximum effort of the shop owner to buy it at the lowest possible price. When a customer comes to the shop to buy shoes, it will be the effort of the shopkeeper to sell it at the highest price possible. This is that business, inverted commas, mentality which is condemned by the Quran, and it has called this kind of earning as tatfif. And not only that, they even hide the faults of the material or the goods they are selling. For example, if you go and wish to buy a used car, they will sell a faulty car at a higher price so that they can get the maximum benefit without disclosing its faults to the buyer. And this practice is done right across the board. Now the question is, why does the shop owner give the minimum to the shoemaker? Or we can say, why is the shoemaker forced to sell at the minimum price? And that is important. The human beings whose work is exploited because they are weak and they are poor and they need to meet their needs, basic needs, hence they sell their hard work at a cheaper price to the rich man. This is because he does not have the capital to promote this product. Hence, this profit which is received from the customer is riba, increase on the capital, which cannot be legitimate. Now, the question is that how much profit is legitimate for the shop owner to charge? The answer to this is simple. Firstly, the shop owner invests his capital, and secondly, he puts in his effort by sitting in his shop the whole day. And that is his work, that he's sitting over there waiting for the customer to come and he can sell it. So that is his effort, that is his work. The principle as per the Quran is Laisa lil insani illa ma sa'a. Hence, this shopkeeper has a right to receive recompense for his labor, that the man should receive what he works for. He is not deserving of taking more based on his capital. For this, it should be defined what should be the return for this whole day's work, i.e., he can get Rasool mal, that is what he is from his customer for his labor. So he should get the return for his work, that is sitting and organizing his shop for a whole day, and for that he should get it from the customer. And that is an important point. So we can see over here that it requires a system. It is not for an individual to start practicing these things, but the individual should be conscious of it. He should understand that what are the weaknesses and exploitations of the man-made systems in which he is living, and he has to reject the concept of this whole riba which works within the man-made systems. So that is why Quran says, that after rejecting this, you will understand that why it is important to have iman in Allah, the way it is defined in the Quran. In riba, since there is no effort, that is labor involved, hence the increase in the capital is received. Therefore, taking back Rasool mal is legitimate. That is the original sum can be taken back. And in Baiey, since labor is also included, hence the Rasool mal plus the return on the labor is halal, nothing more than this. This situation will exist until the time that the economic system of the Quran is not established in its complete form. And that is something which we should keep in mind and keep thinking, that once the system of Deen is established, a lot of these difficulties will disappear by organizing it in a way so that human beings work hard and earn their living, and whatever, even from the work they are doing, whatever is spare with them, they will be able to pass it on to the system of Deen for the good of everyone. At that time, the onus for the necessities of life, all members of the society will be on the Islamic State, and the question of getting profit on the exchange of goods will not even arise. Hence, the commerce in which income is received just on the capital will not be legitimate in the Islamic society, or legal or halal. Under Baiey and Riba, there is only capital, while under Baiey, a return for the labor can be received. So that is the differentiation we should understand well, so that we understand that why Quran is forbidding riba. The meaning of Baiey is also that mutual agreement. According to the Quran, there is a matter of buying and selling between a mu'min and his Allah, which is noted in Surah Tawbah. Inna Allah ashtara minal mu'minina anfusahum wa amwalahum bi anna lahumul jannata. Undoubtedly, Allah has purchased the lives and possessions of mu'mineen in exchange for Jannah. So, important thing is that once we come on to the guidance of the Quran, we have to understand that at a fundamental level, we as individuals and as a Jamaat make a commitment with Allah. And in exchange for our life, that is the physical side, our physical existence in this world, and the possessions which we have got from the man-made system, all now belong to Allah, that is to the welfare of everyone and to the system of deen. And we have to acquire that kind of a psyche in order to understand this issue of riba, which the Quran has put forward and has forbidden. The meaning of Baiey, another slide. It is obvious that according to this agreement, neither wealth and possessions remain in private ownership, nor are their lives their own. Both these are entrusted to them. In practice, this agreement is made with the center of the system. Prior to the establishment of this system, efforts are made to work for it. This is that covenant which is made at the time of accepting Islam. For example, this is one part of the verse. Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu iza ja'akal mu'minatu yubayyinaka ala an la yushrikna billahi shay'an. And I have highlighted the word root Baiey has appeared over here. O Nabi, when Mu'min women come to you for making this covenant with you, that they will not commit shirk with Allah. So this is important to understand, that in order to acquire that status as a Mu'min and as a Muslim, which should be able to understand this issue of riba, we have to make a lot of effort and study the man-made system closely and the weaknesses of the system based on riba. We have seen how the Quran gradually makes things clear and leads us towards the finer details of the system of deen. People who study the Quran within the man-made systems try their utmost to interpret its precepts and principles in order to do some modifications within the capitalist systems and fail miserably. They have to fail miserably, that firstly because they haven't acquired that iman which is based on salih deeds and haven't understood the purpose of the revelation of the Quran, which is for the good of whole of mankind. Then they live with those differences. And even if they have heard about Tolu Islam and its aim, they do not come to Tolu Islam and they do not join with those who are on this platform. So if we do not come together and unite our hearts, then how are we going to understand the system of riba? Absolutely impossible. In fact, they cause great harm to the cause of deen, as they misguide even those who may be genuinely interested in an alternative system to man-made systems. So people satisfy themselves by saying this is Islamic system, or I'm not taking interest from the bank, or I'm not taking mortgage for buying a house. And I have seen that people who do not take mortgage because they think it is interest, but at the same time, they are renting property and giving rent to others. And when it is pointed to them that this rent which you are giving to others, you are also dealing in riba, then they give you a blank look. Tolu Islam can provide literature on the Quranic system of sustenance. Possible phases to riba-free system. Now over here, I've drawn a schematic because doubts and questions arise in our mind that how will we ultimately be able to establish a riba-free system. And over here, I have put down some thoughts through our discussion previously on these various aspects of the system of deen. Firstly, we should be looking for guidance after rejecting the system of taghut and accepting iman, that is studying the Quran as deen. And over here, Tolu Islam can help. Why I say Tolu Islam? Because Tolu Islam is the only movement or organization in the world which is putting forward the system of deen. And Allama Pervez has written a lot on this aspect, and we can understand the fundamentals and come to terms with that. But for this, I will emphasize again that we must acquire precisely that iman which is given and explained in the Quran, and then through salih deeds, we move forward and create a desire within us to join those who are on this platform of Tolu Islam and unite our hearts. And once the unity of hearts takes place, then we'll be able to understand what the Quran is telling us about the system of deen. Joining those who are on this path willingly in response to inner desire. And that is a very important point which we have shared previously as well, that the inner desire, the creation of inner desire within us to join those who are in this path will tell us that we have precisely acquired that iman which is given in the Quran, and through solid deeds now we have brought out some of our latent potentials, and more are going to come out later on as we progress on this Sirat-e-Mustaqim. Growing in understanding of deen till hearts become united. Common purpose, investing in time plus resource. And next is forming phase. Now, once we have reached this second phase, then the third phase starts, formal education and training leading to individual self-development. And that is what we are doing through these presentations and through these question-answer sessions. Mu'mineen based on iman plus solid deeds emerge, continue with patience and steadfastness. And that is that patience which human beings lack, to which the Quran has pointed our attention. That you must acquire that patience, that the path I'm following, it will bear those results which Allah has promised in the Quran. Next is strengthening phase. So once this phase is formed, then the next is strengthening of this phase. In this phase, power should appear in the direction of these mu'mineen who have now coalesced into a solid jamaat, expansion of vision and consciousness to continue. And this is what the Quran says, bir, as is stated in verse, for example, 177 of Surah Al-Baqarah. That bir is to acquire iman first, and then despite having affection and love for wealth, give it to others. Establish the system of salat, establish the system of zakat, stay together, go through all hardships, and then become muttaqi, that muttaqi to which Allah has promised that power will come in their direction. Deen phase, power acquired in a piece of land, transitory phase from the man-made system towards deen. This core Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen acts as the initial seeding, utilizes existing setup. So this Jamaat which emerges out of it is the one which can now understand the system of deen, and if they have got a piece of land and power in that, they can establish that system of deen. And the next phase is transitory phase, individual appeal for sadaqat and voluntary sharing of wealth and possessions, which they are doing previously. All these human beings following this path are already doing it. For example, they are helping Tolu Islam, and they are contributing towards the strengthening this aspect so that the message of Allah can go across the world. They are enhancing their own knowledge and are able to explain to others. For example, from today's presentation, if we understand it well, then we can explain it to others. System to be put in place, concept of the self is promoted. And if they have acquired this self, which they have, having reached this transitory phase, these people then are able to explain it to others. Extensive program for motivation based on rational thinking and reasoning, education and training of a core team of those looking for guidance. So after the initial core team, which is acquired some power in a land, now they train others and create a number of core teams in various regions so that they can spread out and pass on the message of Allah and explain to others and organize it in a decentralized form. Stepping towards the collective system, awareness of issues in detail and their remedial measures based on the Quran, organizing and solving day-to-day issues on a long-term basis. And this is where the transition starts taking place from the man-made systems to the system of deen. We should remember that even within the man-made systems, if efforts are made, a lot of problems can be solved even through the procedures laid down in the man-made system if these are followed. But obviously, these are not as efficient and as good as the system of deen will be. Deen taking shape based on permanent values, because now people have started understanding permanent values. It has become part of the education syllabus. People with divine attributes identified as a core team, decentralized on a regional basis, issue of Riba identified, and banking system to be reformed. And we will look into it in slightly more detail that some kind of banking system may be required, but what will be its shape without the system of, without Riba. Finally, the system of Deen matures within the guidance of the Quran. This is a consolidation phase. And we are here, according to my assessment, and one may disagree, and I put a question mark here that we are on this platform at this stage where we are coming to grips with the system of Deen and its finer points and trying to change our psyche to a higher level of understanding of the system of Deen and bringing change within us. At the same time, we are also strengthening through Islam. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.